I get two types of questions the most often on social media. People who I don't know pinging me. Number one, how do I get started in digital forensics?
Number one question.
Yep. Number one question. And number two, how do I get a job in digital forensics now that I've done all those things that you told me 6 months, a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, Jessica, that I should do?
All right, ready? Our Point for Forensic Podcast, Unallocated Space, take 2.
Tap us in.
All right, welcome to Our Point Forensics Podcast, Unallocated Space. This is a podcast for... All right. Welcome to Our Point Forensics Podcast, Unallocated Space. This podcast is a live conversation about current issues and solutions within the digital forensic and incident response community. We're excited to learn with you about the space from industry-leading experts and passionate individuals supporting the DFIR community. Since this is our first podcast, I want to introduce our audience to Arc Point Forensics. If you know us, great. Hello again. For those that don't, we are a small company headquartered in Tampa, Florida. Arc Point focuses on developing products and solutions to law enforcement and military and beyond to make digital forensics more accessible for all users. My name is Amy Moles. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Arc Point Forensics. I've been supporting the DFR community for over a decade as a defense contractor, supporting the DoD and intelligence community before making the leap to establish Arc Point Forensics with Jared Ringberg. I'll hand it over to Jared for introductions.
Hey, and my name is Jared Ringberg. I'm founder of Arc Point. I started out in cybersecurity, cyber operations, working up at Fort Meade for about 6 years, and then transitioned over to National Media Exploitation Center as a contractor, and supported the military around the Middle East and around the world doing digital forensics, acquisitions, and exploitation. Yeah, so jumping into it, we've got a guest today that we're really excited to talk with, Jessica Hyde. Some of you may know her. Jessica is an experienced forensic examiner in both government and commercial sectors, having worked as a contractor providing forensic services to the Department of Defense and the intelligence community. She's the founder of Hexordia, a digital forensics contracting and training organization. So go and check them out if you haven't already done that. Jessica is also an adjunct professor teaching mobile forensics in the graduate program at George Mason University, where she achieved a Master's of Science in Computer Forensics. Jessica was most recently the director of forensics at Magnet Forensics, and Jessica was also the host of the podcast Cache Up, that's CACHE Up. So go and check that out. It's a podcast where she interviewed digital forensics practitioners and professionals from the industry. So if this is a topic that you're interested in, there's a lot of good content there. So definitely go and check that out. And she is also involved in several community efforts, and get ready for this, including as a volunteer for the Marine Corps Cyber Auxiliary, chair of the there's one. There's going to be multiple of those. Chair of the DFIR Review, president of the New York Metro High Tech Crime International Association chapter, advisory board for the Cyber Sleuth Lab, and a member of the editorial board for the Forensics Science International Digital Investigations Journal. Her previous roles include performing forensic examinations as a senior mobile exploitation analyst for Basis Technologies. She was a senior at Ernst & Young and a senior electrical engineer at American Systems. Jessica, if you didn't already know, is proud to be a veteran of the United States Marine Corps.
I know.
Jessica, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the kind introduction.
Yeah, it's been great catching up with you these last couple weeks.
It has been. So for people who didn't catch that, I am fortunate to have had the opportunity nearly a decade ago to have worked in the same lab with both Jared and Amy. So this was almost like a reunion in some ways of being able to get back together. It's just such a pleasure.
Yeah, it has. I think, I joined the organization that you were a part of the bigger organization back in 2014. So it's been a while. Yeah,
and I was there well before that. I think Amy was there before you as well, and so it's just really neat reuniting with you all, because I think we got to partake in an organization that had a great mission, and we did really cool digital forensics work together. And sometimes it's neat. So anyone who's out there, like if you have the opportunity to go catch up with folks who you worked with in previous labs, I highly encourage it, because there's a sort of camaraderie that will never leave. That's really awesome.
Yeah. And it's been really cool, especially over the last decade, to see where people have gone and what they've done. And oh, right. Yeah. There's a lot of great people in the industry, and it's a small community too.
It's a small community, but we're growing, right? So, I mean, I guess that's something good to remind people of, because no matter where you are, I don't care if you I don't care if you're still in school. If you're still in school, the people who you're attending school with, you're going to run into again and again through your career. And it's very possible that your classmates today, a decade from now, you're going to be running different labs that are working together and correlating together. And it's been a really amazing experience throughout my career to see that. So just know that the people who are in your classes today, who you're studying with, or people who you're running into in a SANS class, et cetera, even if you're newer to the field, just know a decade from now, or 15 years from now, or even maybe as quick as 5 years from now, you're going to be running into each other again in different positions and different roles than you might imagine today. So
yeah,
on that
absolutely.
note, don't burn bridges, but it's
be nice.
Be
kind,
nice
to people.
Be kind and be thoughtful to everyone, because we all have to work together. But you'll continue to see the same people again. It's really amazing to see how different people grow and what they do. And congratulations, Jared and Amy, on the launch of Artrio, and on creating ArcPoint and this podcast. And it's just so cool to see where you're going and the things you're developing to really help frontline examiners and investigators. So just bravo to you. And again, it's so cool to just see where people grow and develop.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been kind of a bit of a roller coaster. For anybody who started a business, there's a lot of ups, there's a lot of downs, there's everything in between. So, and it's fast. So
it's
we are
amazing
very happy
how
where
fast.
We are. Yeah. I feel like we kept saying, like, if you all think that we're busy now, just hang on to your seats, because we're going to laugh about what we thought was busy. So it's been really good. And we're happy to see the progress that, ArcPoint is making as a team. So, but speaking of influencers, you're a huge influencer and supporter of the DFR community, and you have been for a really long time. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started and what lit that fire underneath?
Sure. So, I have anybody who's been in this field a while, I feel like doesn't have a traditional path where you went to school to study for digital forensics. That wasn't my journey. I was in the Marine Corps. I was fixing Harriers. So as an avionics man, electrician on jets. So doing a lot of soldering, a lot of troubleshooting, ironically, skills that I still use to this day in digital forensics, probably why I'm a hardware nerd. While I was in the Marine Corps, I worked on an electrical engineering technologies degree. And so then when I got out, I took a job as an electrical engineer in a reverse engineering lab that was reverse engineering IEDs. This was at the Terrorist Explosive Device Analytical Center, one of the coolest places to work, because I got to use the technical skills I had learned, and both scholastically and from my prior career fixing aircrafts, and do schematic derivation and really try to figure out the construction and other things of things that were dismembering and killing my brothers and sisters at arms overseas, right? So coming out of the Marine Corps, you have this passion I had the passion to join the Marine Corps to do and take care of my country and do something bigger than myself. And so then having the opportunity to use my technical skills and my education that I earned only while I was in the Marine Corps to go ahead and do that. I apologize. I just made the world's biggest mistake and did not put my phone on Do Not Disturb. So let me do that. That was a rookie mistake. My apologies. So I was able to work there, but if anybody who remembers IUDs from feature phone days, not that I think that's something that everybody knows, but I feel like people have seen pictures of these enough. A lot of the electronic devices that were developed were connected to phones. So I started doing digital forensics to extract data from mobile phones that were blown up pre-smartphone.
Wow.
So I was doing traditional computer forensics as well, but so I was doing a hardware attack on these devices, literally by chip, and pulling and extracting the data, but then combining it with schematic derivation about the devices themselves. And
what an interesting way to get into the industry. That's like,
backwards,
I
right?
never would have guessed that.
So I was more in the reverse engineering push pop move of looking like at Atmel chips, for if that resonates with anybody. But then I was also acquiring data from devices. And if you look, like, I have the weirdest like training record because I got to use the coolest tools like scanning electron microscopes, laser and chemical and plasma decapsulation. Like I was certified in 3D computed tomography because I was using, so it was like a job that I felt passionate about because I was doing really good, important work to protect and help my brethren that were being injured and hurt overseas after I was no longer directly supporting that mission as a Marine. But I also got to use like all of these tech skills and have my hands dirty and write forensic reports and derive data and figure out data storage. So one of the unique things about having started on the feature phone side was nearly every device had its own proprietary operating system, right? So I became very proficient at rebuilding those things. But I wanted to get more rounded. So I went to George Mason University and got my master's in computer forensics and went into the incident response, forensics technology discovery industry over at EY to round myself. So I knew that I was doing something very, very niche. And if I wanted to, right, like computer forensics is niche in
yeah, it is.
In InfoSec as well, in general computer security or whatever phrase you're using. But then to like specialize in blown up mobile phones is a really, really narrow space. So I wanted to get greater exposure, and I did that. So I went to EY and I got to work in corporate environments and work different types of cases. But for me personally, I had a drive to still be supporting the DoD military mission because of my background and my experiences. So I went ahead and went to the National Media Exploitation Center, where I got to work with Amy and Jared as a contractor for Basis Technologies. And one of the cool reasons that I went and took that role was to work with Heather Mahalik. On the day that I started, Heather told me, and I'm sure many of you know Heather, Heather and I are good friends because while she was working at NMEC and I was working at TDAC, there was collaboration between those organizations. And so when I got to NMEC on the first day, she told me, "Oh, Jessica, actually, you're here to take over my job. I'm moving somewhere else in the organization and the company." And I was like, "I took this job to work with you," but it was incredible. I got to work for Dr. Brian Carrier, who everybody knows, wrote file system analysis, and I got to lead the mobile forensics, both exploitation and analysis and development teams in that lab. And I got to work with the hardware exploitation lab and all kinds of fabulous people. It was just an incredible experience supporting mission. And even more importantly, we did all the hard stuff. And you both know this, but the entire goal, at least on my team, was to do things that were missed by the commercial tools. So it was just an incredible experience at both getting into unsupported devices and parsing unsupported applications and then developing tools to help meet those. And then I would have stayed there forever. I loved that job. It was just incredible work with an incredible team, some of the brightest people I've ever worked with. But then the lab was BRAC, Base Realignment and Closure, and it was relocated. And both of you were astute enough to travel to the new location, but it did not work for my family and my geolocation, and technically, like logistically, didn't work with like getting my kids from daycare. It would have been unfeasible. So I went to Magnet in an incredible role as director of forensics and got to be there for 5 years, working with product and doing research and getting to work with examiners all over the world. What an incredible experience I have working for Jad Saliba. I feel like I've had the luckiest and most amazing career because I've gotten to do so many different things, be part of so many amazing groups, and get to work with so many other incredible volunteers who are trying to better our field. But at the end of the day, I wasn't back supporting that mission again. Like, I feel like I constantly get just drawn back into the mission. So this summer I launched Hexordia with a couple of different aspirations. One was to go back and support elements of the DoD and the IC, Department of Defense and Intelligence community, but also to really work on accessibility. As someone who's been passionate in this field about bringing others up, I love the quote that Richie Cyrus, who's a great forensics examiner, we were talking maybe 5-6 years ago. We were at a B-Sides, and he said to me, my mother always told me we had to send the elevator back down. And that like resonated with me more than you could imagine. How do we even let other people know the elevator is here? How do we bring them into this field? We need talented people. And yeah, so anyway, you asked me about my passions there and my story. I just tried to combine both.
Yeah, no, congratulations on the launch. We know how difficult it is to launch a company. So that's like a huge success. I feel like I can relate to you as like, in this industry, you touch upon so many different people that are so passionate about their job and their roles and what they're doing, that they don't, it doesn't feel like work. Yeah.
We get to help people. We get to find truth. We get to be nerdy. We get to figure out new problems and solve puzzles. And at the end of the day, our work matters, right? Like there's that old President Reagan quote. Gosh, I'm just sharing quotes, I feel like, that goes, and I'm probably going to mess it up, but it was, some people go their whole life trying to find meaning or do something with purpose, and Marines don't have that problem. And I feel the same way about people who work in digital forensics.
Yeah, I can relate to that 100%. So before I started doing digital forensics in my career, I felt like I was just kind of floating along. It was like, this is just a job. This is just a paycheck to me, until I got my first forensic job. And I'm like, this is what I went to school for. I love this. You get to see another side of people that's, can be ugly, but also good. So it's interesting.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we get to help people on their worst days. And a lot of it is hard, right? Like there's a lot of, because we're looking at the truth of only evil, we get a little bit skewed, and a lot of it is hard. And I just want to take this opportunity to say that mental health is incredibly important. If you are a leader in digital forensics, ensure that you are taking care of your people, that you are giving them things like timed breaks, that you are giving them resources, access to mental health resources. And, I've had people on my team who I've taken off casework and moved them into tool development because it wasn't working for them anymore. The mental toll of doing this work is not for everybody. And not to bring up negative things, but we all worked in a lab where we lost one of our colleagues to suicide, who was amazing and who I would have never guessed it, right? It was a video exploitation analyst, all the best to his soul, and may his memory be a blessing. But the work that we sometimes do is very psychologically damaging. And I think that's important for people to know. Like, if you don't think that's the right space for you, there are plenty of jobs in digital forensics that are more on the incident response side, where you're less likely to encounter noxious content. But if you're working child sexual abuse content, if you're working terrorism cases, if you're working homicides, if you're working domestic violence cases, if you're working human trafficking, you're going to run into content that is noxious. And just stressing to people to be honest with yourself and with your colleagues and mentors and supervisors, and to leaders in this industry take time to account for the mental health of your forensics examiners. I feel like this is a critical thing that we need to really look at as an industry. Sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We couldn't agree more with you. Actually, the culture at ArcPoint is put yourself first, meaning
Sure.
if you're not in the right headspace to show up and do your job, we want you to take the time, like take a personal wellness day, take it off, go for a hike, go for, I don't know, lay around in bed, watch your favorite Netflix movie, whatever you need to do to recharge your battery so that you can do your job and perform. That's what we care about. Because if you can't do your job, you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of your family, comes full cycle. And that speaks really deeply to me. I think that that's a really important thing that a lot of companies are starting to do, is like realize the importance of mental health and, putting yourself first.
And there's even good academic research that's coming out in this space now that I think is absolutely critical. And I think that that's really, really, really important. And just excuse me 1 second. I
She's gone.
Like major.
She's ghosted
today.
us.
No, I'm major rookie today, and I can see my laptop battery is dying. Because why would have I plugged in? Because I'm making like I've never done a podcast before. So I apologize profusely.
No, it's all good. Yeah, I'll just jump in there and say that. Like I'll add to that. There's for people that are getting into this space, because I spent a lot of time overseas in the Middle East looking at extremist content and going through that. And there's steps that you can take. Like if you know this is the environment you're going to be working in, there's no audio there, Jess. We lost you.
I didn't actually say anything. I said for sure. Like sometimes I'll enunciate quietly. I apologize.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, there's steps that you can take and be proactive about it. If you know that you're going to be looking at this stuff, like you don't have to watch the whole thing. Like once you know that it's there, if that meets your need, move on. Or you don't have to hear the audio while you're watching the video, or maybe just listen to the audio and don't watch the video.
Because there's a lot of tools now that have worked to put in features for mental health and wellness.
Oh, okay.
So I know at least when I was at Magnet, they built in features to blur, features that once you've reviewed something, you can gray it out so you don't have to see it again as you bring up the data. Features that put in timeout. So like literally you get forced breaks at intervals that you decide. And more importantly, the one you mentioned, which I think is what's helped me the most, which is if I have to review both the audio and video tracks, I usually do them separately, and tools allow you to do that now. So just from a wellness perspective, I really appreciate that organizations and multiple tools have these features really focused on examiner wellness and health. And it sounds like they're not the techiest features, right? It's not carving this new time sort of data, but the fact that organizations are taking the time to put in those features to allow people to focus on their mental health and to do what we can with technology to make it better is good. And that includes anything from using hash sets to exclude data you need to review because it's already known what it is when it comes to CSAM, to using artificial intelligence filters. Like take advantage of the technology and the mental health wellness. I'd say also there's really good research coming out of Australia that's been publishing academic papers regarding mental health and wellness. And it's a research team that's working with the Australian Federal Police. And there's been a couple of papers and they're continuing and leveling up the different studies. I wish I could cite them off the top of my hand. I apologize. But if anybody's interested in that, catch me on Twitter at B1N2H3X or BintaHex, and I'll send it to you.
Awesome.
BintaHex, I like that.
Yeah, it's funny. It took me a long time to figure out what that was. Like, I would look at it, I'm like, this is something that is very creative because it's Jessica. And then one day I was like, oh, okay, it wasn't that cryptic.
It's binary to hex, and it's alternating alphanumeric. So yeah. I like patterns. It gives a little bit of pattern. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if anybody's ever been wondering about my random weird handle, it actually, to be honest, I used to ask people to do binary to hex conversions during interviews, and I changed my handle to that when I was doing that because a good friend, Cesar Quezada, who we've all worked with as well, great examiner, noted, Jessica, why do you always have to ask that binary to hex question? I said, because I don't expect anybody to do conversions off the top of their head, but it allows me to understand how they think. because I usually have them whiteboarded, or I've changed my interview questions. So don't think that anybody who ever interviews for a position with me just got a heads up.
Now I want to know what they are.
No. But that's actually where that came from.
Oh,
okay, cool.
So I kind of wanted to go back and circle back to the elevator quote that you had brought up.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really interesting because
Cyrus's mom.
So it's really interesting because a lot of the reoccurring themes we're seeing in the industry is like gatekeeping or not being, some people are helpful, some people aren't helpful of making information accessible. I know for ArcPoint and our product Atro, we wanted to, it's very key for us to make data and digital forensics accessible to all users, as well as training and resources, right? So we're really passionate about that. But how like what kind of recommendations can you give people to maybe stop gatekeeping and understand why it's so damaging to the community?
Wow. So at the end of the day, it comes to making things more accessible. There are some amazing things I love about our digital forensics community. I feel this is a brilliant question, Amy, and it's something really deep about how, as a maturing field, how do we bring in others? I actually was on the Bureau of Labor and Statistics site the other day for something I was putting together. And the anticipated growth in our field over the next 7 years is 33%.
Yeah.
There are, not only are there a lot of jobs right now that are unfilled in this field, but it's growing. And we can't rely on the old happenstance way that people got into the field. And then we've become into this very education focused field. But we have, so like there's computer forensics programs now at universities like Champlain and Bloomington and all around the world. And that isn't necessarily the only way in. Right now, almost every job posting I look at wants a certification, experience. For junior positions, they're asking for 1 to 3 years of experience, a certification, and education. Now, the education has to be in a related field. It's not like you need a bachelor's in digital forensics, but a bachelor's in engineering, computer science, criminal justice. Any of those seem to fill most of the requirements I'm seeing. There's a problem with this, and the problem really lies in my estimation that we've gate-kept this field quite a bit by requiring certifications of junior people instead of giving them the opportunity to learn them. And one of the reasons is most of the major certifications are available one of two ways. And I'm speaking to vendor neutral certifications. Vendor certifications are very important when people have to testify to understanding how to use a tool, but that's usually not what's required for a position. Usually it's something like one of the GIAC certs or CFCE IASA certs. And the concern there is that the people who have access to doing those certifications are either limited to folks who are already in law enforcement or limited to folks who can be sponsored by their organization due to prohibitive cost. But many organizations sponsor their people. They are fantastic training. They are fantastic certifications. I think as the field matures, we need to figure out what our table stakes are for entry. And maybe we have to invest as organizations into bringing on people who don't yet have those certifications and growing them into them. So I think as organizations look at their junior positions, look to grow people, because right now we have people who meet those things and they're already in roles, so they're only going to be moving from one place to another. We're not preventing that growth from the bottom that we need as an organization. It's going to grow 33%. It's going to be too hard for us to fill all of the needs thanks to the growth of the fact that every single system, every single crime now probably has a digital witness, even if you're not thinking about it, because it might be an IoT sensor that was in the environment at the time, right?
Right.
Or a cell phone that was in a pocket, or a watch, or whatever. There's so much data everywhere that almost every crime has an element. And we have an increase in malware, ransomware, et cetera, and it affecting organizations. So our industry is in a growth place. And so then one of the problems is how do we make more accessible content? There are people who are doing great strides. So for example, Deferred Diva, Elan Wright, her website is incredible. She's taken all of the little independent parts that people have put out of free training and made that in a format where she's like, here are all the webinars that are going on, here's all these topics. And let's be honest, COVID has helped immensely in terms of the amount of recorded content that is out there for people to consume and learn from. And she puts together a block of basically anything that's free or affordable for people to know what's out there and available. And I think that's really, really critical. And I think folks need to find mentors in the field. And I think it is a responsibility of those of us who have been in the field a long time to help mentor, to send the elevator back down. Anybody who I've personally worked with as a mentor knows that they actually have to put in the work. If they don't, there's no point to the relationship continuing. Mentorship takes work, but find a mentor. There are so many people in this field who will be willing to help. And really people need to get in touch with those resources. But yeah, as a community, we need to broaden our horizons to make things more accessible so that we can grow the field. But it's important for another reason. And the other reason is to bring in diversity of people who have access to being in these careers. I am super proud to be on the advisory board, for example, of Cyber Sleuth Labs, which has written digital forensics educational content headed by the incredible Daryl Pfeif. She's amazing. And Dr. Eoghan Case, who is incredible, one of my biggest mentors. And they, with others, created Cyber Sleuth Labs, which creates virtual education that is delivered to inner city women and minorities in high school. That's where amazing. They learn about digital forensics in this completely amazing virtual environment, hands-on labs. And that's what we need to be doing. We need to be making the outreach about the fact that this profession exists to communities that otherwise may not know. And it has to be forward outreach. We can't just wait for people to come to us. And doing that and speaking about our field is great, which actually is something everyone here can do. Anyone who's listening to this who does digital forensics, I don't care if you're in your first digital forensics class or you've been doing digital forensics for 25 years. You can go and speak to your local high school or ask to speak to your local high school about what you do as a profession. You can go and speak to collegiate clubs in cybersecurity. This is something I personally go out there and do. You can go speak to summer camps about how to do cybersecurity. And usually, like for me personally, I'll usually do a bit about what digital forensics is, and then a bit about how to protect yourself in basic cybersecurity practices. Poor every cab driver I ever speak to who now knows to use a password manager and multi-factor authentication. But I feel like it's incumbent of us as people in this community, it's almost our responsibility to both make our field more accessible and to inform people about how to keep themselves digitally safe.
Yeah, absolutely. We use a lot of those resources, and I've used a lot of those resources in the past too. Deferred Diva, actually, we talked about in our newsletter. So for anybody who's listening, if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, we have like just snippets of information of like different resources that you can seek out, and monthly tech tips too, which helps you for your actual casework or to learn something if you don't know how to do it.
Yeah, 100%. And there are three things here, right? There's education, there's experience, and there's certification. And those are really the three things that people need when they're going into a role, right? So your education can be formal. You could be a graduate of Champlain College. You could be a graduate of Bloomington. You could have gone to DeSouth. You could have gone, there are so many, DePaul. You could have gone to so many physical programs, or you can build an education from these other resources, looking at DFIR sciences stuff, looking at from Joshua James, Richard Davis's 13 Cubed. You can utilize this and build a foundation, but the important thing is you need experience in it. And how do you get experience? Well, so two things. One, current organizations need to increase their internship opportunities. And I am seeing great things happening. I'll speak about some organizations that are doing some incredible things, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So for example, Tetra Defense, whose president is the one and only Cindy Murphy, who's incredible. They just started a program called Track, which is a rotational for junior people to come in for interns. And they rotate through 4 different segments of cybersecurity that Tetra Defense does, one of those being digital forensics, one being incident response, and then 2 other parts of their industry. And then there are other companies that do this as well. There's a similar program at Aon, Strauss Freeburg. There's a similar program, believe it or not, at Ford Motor Company. So there are these opportunities to apply for internships where you can rotate through and see different things. And that is what we need more of. So I encourage those of you who are in leadership to create more internships. And I'm seeing more of that, more opportunities for people to get that experience so they can move into their next role. And you may find the people at the talent who you want to hire from that. But there is another way to gain experience that you should be measurably putting on your resume if you're trying to break into this field. And that's all of the things that you're watching, you're building. Maybe you're watching Alexis Brignoni's Python series on YouTube, which is completely free education and will teach you not only Python, but how to do it as it pertains to forensics. I recommend this to people all the time. And I've had people who have gone to no coding skills to parsing protobufs in a matter of 18 weeks. And to me, that's incredible. And what I love about what Alexis did is that he made it relatable to forensics. And then, of course, he has the platform XLeap where people can code and develop too and share with the community. But what is absolutely valuable there is if you are doing those things, if you are going through and practicing, and then you're applying it and doing your own research, right? That is experience. You need to document it. How do you document it? Blog about the things you're finding and doing. You, even if you're junior to this field and you're doing something for the first time, guess what? There's someone behind you who's never done it. So if you didn't see the resource and you did it for the first time, document it and blog it. Second of all, if you created any code, put it on GitHub. What does this do for you? Well, it gives you experience. It shows your exposure. It allows an employer to look at what you've done and know, A, you can code, B, you can figure out forensic artifacts, and C, now I know you can write. So much of what we do is reporting. And I have worked with people who, that's the biggest struggle for them is writing the report. And you have to be able to write, because how many of us have worked on a case for 1 hour, but then spent 4 to 5 hours on the report? Or even worse, 2 hours and spent 8 hours on the report. I've been there so many times because, so at any rate, showing that documentation, and it can be a short blog post, about 400 to 1,000 words, just showing and explaining with screen caps the thing you found or the thing you did or the process you went through. Do it as a video, do it as a YouTube, whatever floats your personal style of expression, but demonstrate the experience that you're building and that you're showing. Get involved in CTFs, either building them or participating in them. Those are all things that should go on your resume. If you took first place in like one of the CTFs I built, like the MVS CTF, and I am super excited because Magnus asked me to build the 2022 CTF, and I have so many fun ideas in mind, but because I love building CTFs. But participating in those and placing, that is stuff you can put on your resume because it shows the experience that you've done, the fact that you can do those technical things. So I think that there's other ways people can demonstrate experience. And I think that people who are in the hiring position should credit and look at that experience. And I think that is well done. But then certification becomes the other problem because it is required. And I understand why. I have some hopes to hopefully address that, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah, so it's interesting about the blog post. A lot of people will constantly be writing stuff down or even journaling that to themselves about their job or however they want to deal with that situation. And a lot of times it becomes overwhelming because they're like, well, I have to write a blog and then I have to have somebody peer review it. And where do I go to peer review it? Where do I go to find
DFIR
a mentor? Where
review?
do I go to? Yeah, exactly. So like there's a lot of different resources that probably a lot of individuals aren't aware about that are there to help you. And DFIR review, for instance, is really important because it's not embarrassing if you post something there and somebody reviews it. These are people that are caring about the industry, are natural mentors, and want to be helpful and useful. And then also, where do I post my blog, right? Like, do I have to create a website? You can just add it to your LinkedIn profile. Okay. That's a perfect way of doing it because there's your resume, there's your blog post, there's your experience. It's all in one place.
There's a couple of different good resources here. So I'll put out that both About DFIR and DFIR Training, both are open to hosting people's blog posts who haven't done it. But I highly recommend, if you're thinking about writing your first blog post on This Week in Forensics, This Week in 4 and 6, by Phill Moore. If you go to that website, thisweekinforensics.com, on the right-hand top, there is a tips for writing a blog post or tips for starting a blog. That's what it's called. Go to that tab and follow that. It's like 5 steps and you will have your blog post up. And I would say the most important thing, if you do write a blog, is go ahead and send Phill your blog, because then it will make it into the incredible resource that is This Week in Forensics, which I don't know about anybody else, but yes, every Sunday I read it to know what's new in the industry, but there's like 200 things that go there every week.
Yes. What
I use it for mostly is to search for things. So let's say I'm doing research on a Facebook portal mini, like I did with the amazing Nicole Odom and Sarah Hayes. I would go there to find other research. So of course I'm going to Google Scholar. And by the way, if anybody doesn't know, Google Scholar is amazing for finding academic papers. And there are a ton on there by digital forensics, and you can dig into the author. It's awesome. But Google Scholar and then This Week in Forensics, those are my first 2 sources to check what's out there on a topic before even going to regular Google. And then the other thing is just getting on Twitter. Twitter is where digital forensics news is shared. So you should make a Twitter account. Yes. And post and share your content. I'm really excited because if anybody follows me on Twitter, I've been sharing some new research that people have been putting out the last couple of days, and just things I'm excited about that people are putting out. So yeah, sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Those are all great resources. And for those of you that are listening and watching, what we'll do at the end of this episode is just throw all these resources up in one place so you can jot them down, so you're not having to like drive your vehicle and take notes or, try to take notes while you're at work listening to this in the background. So yeah, that's really impactful to know all of those resources. I think that's helpful.
And join a digital forensics Discord server. There's over 6,500 people there. Like, even if you're getting new, if you're in the field, join and go listen to the conversations. There's scores of channels on the left-hand side. So whatever your niche area is, if you're like back old Jessica, who specifically used to like JTAG and ISP and chip off things back when that was relevant to mobile phones, even though it is now still relevant to IoT. I digress. There's channels for any niche topic, and people are constantly asking questions and getting advice. And it is totally acceptable to join that community as a student. Also for students, networking is absolutely critical to know what's going on, as well as following hashtag DFIR jobs on Twitter and LinkedIn. But go ahead and find yourself in a digital forensics Discord server, but also consider joining as a student member the American Academy of Forensic Sciences, or HTCIA. HTCIA has been a great resource because every chapter, there's 30 chapters, and they're global. And every chapter has to do 4 trainings a year. And now with COVID, they're all recorded. And if you're an HTCIA member, you get access to all of them from all the other chapters. So you're getting like 120 pieces of content of trainings that have been put on by members of the organization a year. And
which also count for continuing education units,
which
for current certifications you have.
Which is something you need to maintain for certifications.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, I'd like to announce a little bit about what Ali Hyde and Cyber5W is partnering with Hexordia, and we're building in terms of that.
Yes, please tell us all the goodies.
So earlier this month, we announced a partnership between Cyber5W, which answers the who, what, where, when, why. That's part of Cyber5W. Professor Dr. Ali Hyde from Champlain College is the founder there, and he already has up a ton of brilliant Linux and Windows courses. And each course is relatively short. What is cool about this is you can either learn the entire topic, or you can just go in on an area that you're interested in. Like if you just want to look and learn about shell bags, he's built all this content for Windows and Linux. And Hexordia's partnership in there is we're in the process of building a slew of content on mobile forensics. And each of these courses is very affordable. They're either free or $50. Each topic, so Windows forensics, Linux forensics, and the mobile forensics stuff that's in process, has 10 to 20 courses each within each. So if you want to know about specifically SQLite analysis, you can go just to that class. Or if you want to know about Android acquisition with free and open source tools, you can go just to that class. So there's a lot of you can modularize or you can put it together. But the really cool thing is we're really excited that we're bringing together a certification in 2022 to provide, again, accessible, low-cost education. But what I'm excited about the certification is, as part of the certification, a lot of certifications right now are either knowledge tests or are less accessible because they're limited in who is allowed to take them by your role in your organization with government. So this is free and open to anyone to take, but you have to conduct an examination and submit a forensics report as part of the certification process. So what we're hoping is that employers will know that this person can do that. And I think Jared and I spoke about this earlier. We were talking about something to deliver as experience. You have that report you wrote, and now you can add that report to your overall package, right? We talk about like when people go for maybe a modeling career, right? They have their book of all the things they've done. Your resume is also a book. And it's got reference to your GitHub for any scripts you've written, to your blog if you've done that. But also this report that you've done as a forensics examination can be used as a demonstrable way to show that you're ready and prepared to succeed in the role.
Yeah, absolutely. And to also set yourself apart in the interview process, especially if you're starting out. Because if you come in with an actual like physical visual that you can hand over, they're going to see that, and they're also going to take it with them. And it's something that they're going to remember and associate with you. And then if you combine that with the blogs and the writing, especially if you have digital content out there, it gives them a chance to get comfortable with you and become familiar with you. And so much about hiring is relationships and getting to know somebody. And that gives you a leg up for sure if they get a chance to get to know you without actually having met you.
And you can do that in the digital world, right? You can get to know people by having conversations on the digital forensics Discord server, by being in hashtag DFIR on Twitter and participate virtually. And then when you see their resume, also, the best part about putting content out there is if I know nothing about you, I'm going to ask you my standard questions about digital forensics to assess your abilities, capabilities, and understanding, right? And I'm probably going to give you a small test to do, like a technical assessment. If you already have content out there, I'm going to ask you about your research. I'm going to ask you about the thing you spent time on. Wouldn't you, I don't know. So for me, let's say I spent a whole bunch of time looking into Fitbit research, right? I'd rather on the interview, you ask me about that than randomly start asking me about FS events, which maybe I haven't studied in a while. I'm confident on FS events, by the way. But I'm just saying, or how they've changed between APFS and HFS and what changed in Big Sur, et cetera, right? Like, but if you're published on something, your interview can be about that. And because it doesn't matter what you know, it matters how you go about it, right? And it matters how you learn and how you access and how you understand file systems and how you understand analysis, et cetera. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. All right. So yeah, could you just tell us, I mean, like we kind of went through like your favorite resource in the community, the Cyber5W stuff. Is there anything else that you would want to share advice-wise to anyone who's just starting out?
Yeah, I mean, I think the really big key here is that no matter where you are, if you are in your first day studying or you've been in the career for 25 years, you know something that will help somebody else. None of us have worked every single type of case, every artifact, every anything. Your perspective and what you've experienced helps other people not reinvent the wheel. So please share. Like, my biggest emphasis and my biggest thing to say to anyone, again, I don't care where you are in your career. Now, there are people who may turn around and say, but I work in this super secret world and I can't share, right? But you can share within your organization and within your team. And you can potentially share with other organizations. You need to share your knowledge. And why? Because you're going to need other people's knowledge. We all build on each other, and credit the people who you're building on. But share, 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 share. And there's so many incredible examples. And even just sharing something that you've learned on the Digital Forensics Discord server on Twitter, maybe that's not the most perfect way because it's not referenceable later or as referenceable later, but you're still getting it out there and still sharing with other people. Anyone can be a mentor. Anyone can share. There's plenty of ways to get involved in the community, for anything from DFIR review and standards bodies to doing academic writing if you're a student and that's your thing, to participating in listservs, to participating in networking at HTCIA, to doing forensics challenges. Like, just get involved with the community, participate. And that's the biggest key and takeaway I can give to anyone. So if you've been doing this a long time, give back. If you're new to this, share what you're learning and mentor others. And I just feel honored and amazingly lucky to be part of such an incredible community that does share, that does build on each other. And, digital forensics is hard. This is not for everyone. Let's be honest, right? If you want something where you're just going to learn something and repeat and do that thing forever, this is the wrong field for you. If you don't want to put in the work, if you don't want to understand that things are always going to change, if you don't have that natural curiosity, this might not be the right fit for you. But if you have that curiosity, if you love to solve puzzles, if you have that need for everything that changes and to adapt to those changes and to find new things and to get excited about those challenges, and you want to work with other people and collaborate while still being able to work by yourself behind a computer, and you can write, and you really have this passion, the most important thing is to do work to help people on their worst day, either victims who we're supporting for accidents that have happened, intelligence that we're finding to prevent the next bad thing, or to help companies on their worst day and protect jobs and infrastructure and medical devices and content, then holy crap, please join us. Be part of us. We're welcoming and we're open and we're growing and we need you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the opportunity to be a leader in that space too is quite significant because the community is so small and the need is so great. The demand for digital forensics expertise is just exploding. And there's an educational scaling problem because it's a very challenging industry to get into. And so the number of people that are actually doing the work and driving the industry forward, it's a much smaller group than you find in a lot of other industries. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity to have impact.
Yeah, and you have that opportunity to really connect with people. That's 100% right. And it is because we're small, but we're growing. So there's opportunity. And also, anybody who's maybe intimidated, there is so much we don't know or don't understand. There are new apps every day. There are new sensors and things that store data coming into our environment every single day. That there is definitely something new you can research and contribute. There is so much. If you need ideas, I think that there's still a list on About DFIR of research ideas, but just go onto the DFIR Discord, see where people are running into challenges and go research it, and there's so much, from drones to IoT to changes in operating systems to the newest apps to, oh my gosh, Twitter just made me aware of this new feature they have, this audio conversation, kind of like Clubhouse. So who's testing that feature, right? Because that just came out and I got that alert this morning. There's always something new. So just go study something that's interesting to you, figure it out with the standards and basis that you learn. It takes a long time. There's a lot to learn. But if you can go out there and do it, we've got so many problems. Please join us. We really want to learn from you.
We have so many problems.
There's so many challenges. It's awesome. It's best field ever.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think Jared had a couple clips from a show that we just like to do something fun at the end. Jared?
All right. Yeah. So we're going to do a digital forensic expert reacts, and I have a couple clips queued up. So I'm going to pull this first one up.
Any chance we can recover those deleted Browning Reed files?
Not without a time machine. Someone ran a brute force deletion program. It's the mother of data erasers. Clean them right off the White House servers.
So we got nothing.
I didn't say that. Because there were so many files to begin with, whoever's been covering their tracks has been deleting them in small batches over the past few months. There are only 5 files still remaining associated with Browning Reed.
I'm gonna need you to make copies and print them up.
And check this out.
Done.
That printer's amazing.
A fingerprint.
And also this acting.
Files. Now, they tend to be unique, but if I'm good, and I like to think I am, I can program a trace and plant the remaining files.
So if the traitor tries to delete any of them, it could track the user back to an exact IP address.
Exactly.
How long will it take you to build a trace?
A few hours.
You've got one. Those files are the only lead to the insider. And once they're deleted, we got nothing.
No pressure.
Get to it. Build that back door.
All right, so many things there. You know, I've got to tell you, I love this. This is a brilliant segment, Jared. I love that you're doing this. Let's break this down. First off, I have recovered files without the need of a time machine before, and that was a pretty quick assessment. I'm very, very curious as to if he's going to build his new code directly on the production element system that is currently infected. I think that's pretty brazen. This brute force auto delete, I don't know what it needs to brute force to delete. I mean, once the system's pwned, it's pwned.
Well, it's the mother of all data destroyers, so
it's the mother of all data destroyers. But yet, it can't. It has to batch. It has to batch, which is kind of a little bit. You know, if I made this amazing, but I wouldn't need to batch my files, and if I did, it would still be in rapid succession, not days, unless they're intentionally doing this to leave a trace. I almost feel like they're doing this intentionally to throw them off. So I feel like the adversary is actually kind of toying with them. But I must say, if he can build that trace back in 1 hour, and we won't discuss what his engagement authorities are because I'm not sure about the appropriateness of that, and that should probably go through approval. But if he builds that in 1 hour, if he builds that in 1 hour, I'll hire him. Is there like an official unallocated space? What is it? Credibility scale? No, I meant a credibility scale for this. Like, is there a credibility scale?
Oh, we should. Yeah, we'll have to come up with something.
I would say, like, if it's 1 to 5 in like sectors, right? Like, are we giving it 1 to 5 sectors? I would give this 2.5 sectors for credibility.
Ooh, I like the credibility scale a lot.
Because I would say that computers exist. I would say that deletion is a thing. I would say, you know, that the plausibility that there is an infection in the system is real. I mean, batching is a concept. I just don't think it's that plausible, as I don't think it's the right method. But yeah, I'll give him a 2.5 on credibility of the first analysis. I'll give him a 1 on the concept of doing this trace back and delivering that in 1 hour, and it being legal and ethical for them to do so. But
yeah, I mean, so from the legal side, like getting permission to do something where you're actually dropping an infected file on a live network or a live system is monumental. Like the hurdles for that are like through the roof. System. Oh right. Yeah, because I think he said he was on the White House servers or something, and
yeah, so
I just think it's funny that he's like, you have 5 hours. It would take 5 hours just to fill out the paperwork to do what he has to do.
So I'll give him 1 on the credibility of being able to do that, but I'll give him 2.5 on the initial analysis. What's your score, Jared? How many sectors are you giving it?
So what's the sector scale out of?
1 to 5.
1 to 5. Man, like for creativity and like problem solving, you know, I'd probably have to give him a 3. Like he came up with the solution and he was all in. Like, you know, he's gonna build this back door into this file that apparently when it gets deleted, somehow it like executes a beacon out. I'd give it probably at least a 3, just for the creativity alone.
I like that for the creativity. I just wonder if, with all the information that appears to be left, I wonder if there's more of a traceback that's left already without having to drop an executable, without creating a payload. But yeah, really cool. Thanks for that's a cool segment.
Yeah. So there are files that you can obviously implant that when executed, you know, can do callbacks. We've seen it in PDFs, we've seen it in archive files, and, you know, a variety of other files.
It's
but it's not an easy thing to do, and especially not an easy thing to do reliably. You know, it takes a lot of development effort, a lot of testing, and
and he's just going to do it live on the production.
So just for the record, you can't do that reliably in 1 hour.
And you definitely shouldn't do it on the live infected network. You shouldn't be testing and authoring your code there.
The live White House network.
Yeah, because nothing's ever gotten out of control, and
nothing's
and
ever
worms have gotten loose. Yeah.
That's funny. Well,
yeah,
Jessica,
Amy, did you have your code? And also, do you guys want to see what happened with it? Follow up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amy, what's
my
your
score was like 1.5 because of acting, and he was very, very over the top. He's like,
already got him printed.
Here are these papers, even though there's no printer in the room.
the silent Insta printer for the thing you just discovered. I need one of those. I mean, I don't know what the ink cost is on that, and I think it even self-foldered. I think it presented it.
Yeah, and I don't know any examiner or anybody who's doing like any type of, you know, investigation who's that confident in themselves. Like, well, I like to think of myself as good. It's like,
I like to think so.
Okay.
Just missing a wink.
Wow.
Okay. All right. Here we go. So this is in the White House now.
I mean, I want this track when I'm working.
I know, the music is good.
Secure network access. Just games.
Just wasting a lot of time for doing work in an hour.
Did you see all those collisions he found?
Protected.
Got it. I love the overlay.
You got this son of a bitch.
Where is it?
The West Wing.
Dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Happened to be right there.
Why do a network attack when you're on the scene? I mean,
Exactly.
Okay, our guy's on the move. Go straight and take a right.
Tracking him down the hall.
How much further?
Take a left at the end of the hallway.
Wait.
I feel
Actually,
like
take a right.
this is when we're following Apple tiles.
Yeah.
Wait.
Where am I going, Chuck?
No. Come on.
What happened?
Back to it.
See, this is why you don't test on production.
I mean,
Our
he
guy
went right past him. Look how suspicious he was.
cloned his digital fingerprint.
He cloned his digital fingerprint.
His MD5 is everywhere.
Ooh.
Dun dun dun.
That music,
Yeah,
though,
so-
it's intense.
Okay, can I ask, like, do we each have like a digital fingerprint that as we walk around, it just shows? I wasn't aware of this. I didn't know that I had one.
My digital fingerprint is everywhere.
No, but I didn't know that, like, I had one that, like, once you do a trace back to me, I have this unique, like, Jessica, like, I mean, I guess I have DNA, right? But, like, that this is going to show up on a map. And oh, maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe this is like, ooh, like crypsis, is that what it's called? Or I can't remember the name of it. But like, so maybe this is code in the DNA and he's replicating his DNA everywhere.
Ooh.
Maybe.
The
Well,
suspense.
usually what you would do
No, I'm joking.
in the implant is you'd have obviously some kind of like signature that you could track, but
Sure. But
replicating his
he made it sound in the initial part like everybody already, like each individual human.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like when I'm referencing the first part to the second part. Yeah, no, I mean, just replicate it everywhere, man. Everybody is now you. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so do we have to give that part a credibility rating?
Because
it's a 1.
Okay. That's just the one across the board.
It actually didn't even make it on the scale.
Yeah. I like the
second.
overlay. If only that was real life, that'd be so helpful. But
the overlay's cool. I like the mapping technology. There's something cool like that I saw in, I mean, it's not exactly the same, but from a DNS IP address, like mapping perspective, there's something cool in the new Metaspike tool, Forensic Email Investigator, that's got like a map function in it. That's pretty neat.
Oh, cool.
I haven't seen before. It's a cool tool. It just got released last week.
That's neat. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us on our first episode of Unallocated Space. We're so happy that you could join us. We did send you a little gift in the mail, so that should be showing up. So you just have a little bit of ArcPoint with you.
Thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure, Amy and Jared, and just really, really cool show. Love the last segment. I've never seen that in any other podcast before. And thanks so much for having me as a guest.
Yeah, and thanks everybody for watching to this point. Please give it a like, subscribe if you can, and also check out Jessica's social media content. Jess, what was your Twitter handle again?
At Binta Hex. That's Bravo 1, November 2, Hotel 3, X-ray, B1N2H3X at Binta Hex.
All right, and of course you can follow ArcPoint Forensics here on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter as well. Thank you.
Thanks guys. See you next month.